Thank you all for joining us. The webinar will begin momentarily.
Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar edition of our What's Brewing series. What's Brewing is sponsored by Miller Lumber and Sunwest Builders. Thank you, and it's good to have you here. My name is Talina Barker, and I'm the Vice President for the Chamber's Leadership and Workforce Development Programs. Just a few quick announcements before we get started. Our Business Excellence Awards are coming up on March 3rd at the Riverhouse Convention Center. Visit bendchamber.org to reserve your seats and come celebrate our business community and leaders together and in person. We also have a Young Professionals Social at Tetherow coming up on February 23rd. If you're a young professional or employ these YPs, these socials are wonderful spaces to make connections and spark some conversations that matter. Today, our panelists will be exploring how to attract and retain talent within your organization and your industry. To moderate and lead this discussion, we have Heather Ficht joining us. Heather is the Executive Director of East Cascade Works, which is a nonprofit connecting talent to opportunity within the 10 counties on the east slopes of the Cascades. Heather has 25 years of experience in workforce development in Oregon, and I'm excited to introduce her now. Heather, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm very excited to be alongside two of my favorite brilliant colleagues, Dr. Laurie Chesley, the president of Central Oregon Community College, and Erika McCalpine, the executive director of Strategic Diversity Initiatives at OSU-Cascades. So I'm just going to start us off with kind of an overview of the landscape of what's happening right now. And I'm going to do it at the Deschutes County level to really kind of give more of a county-wide view of where we are. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that we are really experiencing a tight labor market right now. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the contributing factors to that. So I talked to my other brilliant colleague, Damon Renberg, who is our regional economist from the Oregon Employment Department. And he shared with me that the employment estimates for December 21 in Deschutes County exceeded the employment levels in December 2019 by 1,920 jobs. So we're actually up 2% in the volume of jobs that we have in Central Oregon. So we have more jobs now than we did in 2019 before the pandemic started. Further, the unemployment rate is now only 1% above the record low of 3.3%, which is what it was at the onset of the pandemic. So we were already having labor shortage issues before the pandemic exacerbated them. I wanted to highlight a particular industry that Damon had pointed out to me, which is accommodation and food services. So this is a sector that lost 50% of their workforce at the onset of the pandemic. And we are seeing job growth over the past year that has pushed that sector back and above pre-pandemic levels. So it's super impressive that they are all really back to where they were before. And so a challenge that we're seeing in that industry is that the total number of job ads for the accommodation and food service industry is up 96% from pre-COVID levels. That means that we are really in tight competition for talent in our organizations. And every single one of us is feeling it. In fact, right now, there are roughly about 750 more unemployed people in Deschutes County than pre-pandemic, but we also have roughly 2,400 more job ads than we did before the pandemic. So that's an increase of 154%. So basically, what's my message? Tight labor market. You already knew that, but I wanted to add some facts to accompany that. So we've asked Dr. Chesley and Erika McCalpine to join us today to talk a little bit more about ways to retrain and promote your workforce, and also ways to become that employer that is a sought after employer where you can actually successfully recruit talent, but also retain it. I'd also will be sharing later in this presentation about our public workforce system, which we oversee as a designated by the governor to oversee the public workforce system, which in Oregon is branded as WorkSource. So these are prepaid services paid through business taxes and all of our income tax through the federal government. And it's a partnership where we work together within 5 state agencies and local nonprofits to really connect talent to opportunity. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But at this point, I really want to pass it over to my brilliant colleague, Dr. Laurie Chesley, the president of Central Oregon Community College. Welcome, Laurie.
Thanks, Heather. You're making me very nervous with these superlatives like brilliant. I'm really, I'll try to live up to some expectation, but I'm really glad to be here. I was asked to talk about the role that COCC plays in continuing education for workers and in upskilling, and how that can help attract and retain talent. We know that employees are looking for a family sustaining wage when they look for jobs. Salary matters. But today, especially for younger workers, there are more things that matter. And one key element of that more is a workplace culture that encourages and supports professional development and career advancement, or a career pathway, which is going to be a key term in my comments today. In other words, they want a culture that cares about them and cares about their long-term career. And so our college does play an important role in the region in providing workforce training pathways, if you will. These are particularly focused on and particularly appealing to adults who already have a job, but who are looking for some sort of advancement, whether it's a promotion, a pay increase, maybe moving from the shop floor into management. Maybe it's a completely different career. We provide those opportunities in a variety of ways, or I would say a variety of formats. In person, of course, now we're very robust in remote and online offerings, shorter term opportunities, longer term opportunities that can range from a single class to a 2-year degree. I'd like to give you a sense of some of that range, what that scope looks like at the college. And I'll start with short-term skills classes. And I'm just going to give a few examples in each category. We really have quite a panoply of opportunities and different kinds of classes. I'm an English teacher by training, so I have to sneak in words like panoply sometimes. First of all, we offer short-term classes, and those might be in office skills, in leadership, professional certifications for various occupations like contractors or electricians. Again, on a shorter term basis, we have our Small Business Development Center that offers courses and workshops and individual advising related to all stages of small business ownership. We also have what I'm going to call modularized programs, programs in which you can earn stackable credentials along your path. Those credentials can lead you to new opportunities in the workforce, new kinds of training, pay increases, but they all add up to, if a person wants it, a 2-year degree in automotive technology or automotive management. And the certifications are in things like automotive HVAC, drivetrain technologies. So what that allows is for students to start, take what they need for the immediate future, come back when they need more, or they can do it all in a series. Career pathways really seek to provide clear on-ramps and off-ramps for people who are at all stages of their career. We also, of course, offer our 2-year degrees that I'm sure many of you know about: nursing, aviation, fire science, a wide array. We're also becoming more and more involved in apprenticeships, which I am a huge fan of. I know Heather is as well. Occupational training that combines paid on-the-job experience with classroom instruction, with sort of college instruction. We currently have a number of apprenticeships available in things like industrial maintenance, and soon we will have plumbing and carpentry. So this is an area we're really looking to grow, obviously in coordination with local employers. So we focus on providing training in a variety of ways because we want to build these career pathways that benefit not only workers, but their employers. A career pathway is really a series of structured and connected education programs and support services that enable students, often while they're working, to advance over time to better jobs and higher levels of education and training. An example, the automotive career pathway that I just talked about. Another example, we know that there's a huge need for new employees in healthcare careers. And there's sometimes a waiting list to get into a nursing program, or folks aren't ready for that kind of a 2-year commitment yet. So we offer CNA as a short-term training to get folks in the workplace, learning what it's like to be in a health field. That person can choose to continue with medical assisting training. That maybe leads up to nursing or another health-related field. We're even very concerned about the articulations that we make with local high schools so that their career and technical education articulates to our programs. Again, start the pathway, continue it, maybe even move on to a 4-year institution. And we're very concerned with the articulations of programming to 4-year institutions as well. So the pathway essentially goes well beyond us. One of my favorite examples of providing a pathway to a COCC employer and student, you'll see, is the story of a man named Avery. And I got to meet Avery on Residence Hall move-in day. And it was just a pleasure. He was a fairly new custodian at our institution and was so thrilled to be here. Spoke to how much he enjoyed the environment that he was in. And one of the things we do here is encourage ongoing education in various ways, tuition waivers, other kinds of professional development funds. Well, Avery, I next met at a graduation ceremony for construction workers that I attended in Prineville. He had participated in a great partnership program we have with Fortis Construction and with Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook. And together we offered hands-on training in construction for 8 weeks. It was an 8-week program. Some of that was in the classroom, instruction that COCC provided. Some of it was on-site, learning the skills, hands-on. All of the students had their tuition paid for. All of them got a job with the companies that worked with Meta in Prineville. So I met Avery there, and it was really delightful. Of course, I'm sad because we're all facing the employee challenges that you are as well. The Great Resignation has hit COCC, but what a delight to see that one of our folks took advantage of one of our educational opportunities. I guess sometimes providing avenues for advancement might seem to work against an employer, but we're an educational institution, so we take great pride in the success of both our employees and our students. And obviously, sometimes they're both. I was asked to speak briefly to the importance of both hard and soft skills in our teaching and in training. And we've heard for years that from national studies, from the employers who sit on our advisory boards, that it is absolutely not sufficient to teach just the technical skills needed for a job like welder or chef, but it's also vital to teach in conjunction with those technical skills, what some call soft skills. I prefer employability skills. They are skills like these: communication, teamwork, self-management, willingness to learn, thinking skills, problem solving and decision making, and resilience. Our instructors embed those skills in their teaching of job-specific technical skills. Those employability skills were just as important in our partnership for construction as were the construction skills, because we know that's what employers want. So it's very important in our work. I was also asked, what is COCC's vision for workforce development training? Well, it's to increase the pathways that we have for local workers and for students who might be coming right out of high school. Expand the variety that we have to reach as many people as possible and to address the needs of employers. More generally, I would say that our aspiration is this: when people think about and want workforce training, they think of COCC. And that's because they know that our training will be easy to access, it will be current, it will be high quality, and it will be affordable. And we aspire to those things because we know, like Heather knows, like all of you know, that workforce training transforms lives. Sometimes lives for generations in a family. And that is going to help keep Central Oregon the great place to live that it is. Thanks for listening.
That was wonderful, Laurie. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to have an opportunity to ask more questions later. Just a friendly reminder, if you do have questions, please don't put them in the chat. Add them to the Q&A. There's a little button on the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to turn over to my other brilliant colleague, Erika McCalpine. Erika, it really specializes in organizational development and business operations and has tons of experience and knowledge in really what it takes to make a workplace inclusive and welcoming, where you're going to be able to retain your talent and be competitive to hire people. Thanks for being here today, Erika.
Thank you. Thanks to the Ben Chamber for having me and inviting me to participate today. So I was specifically asked to talk about culture development and DEI initiatives and how that helps to increase retention of employees. And so it's imperative for us to ask the question about our organizations. First, what is the culture? And if that's a question that can't be answered, or you get a lot of different responses to what your culture is, then that means it needs some work because it's not clear. And for those entering the organization, they may feel that they have to assimilate in order to be a part of the culture. And assimilation is not inclusion. Acting like those around you to fit in is not truly belonging. And that can be one of the reasons why it could be hard for your organization to retain employees. So understanding what your culture is, and then understanding the time in which your culture was created. If your organization has been around for a long time, like most higher education institutions have, cultures have to evolve to match the times that we are living through and the new people that might be present within the organization. And you have to work constantly to understand the dynamics of how others are experiencing your organization that are a part of it, which can be done through regular conversations and interviews or surveys that people can provide anonymous feedback. So that kind of addresses the culture, but one thing that we need to talk about is the Great Resignation, that we see happening around the country today. COVID really showed a lot of us what's valuable, right? We had a lot of time to spend at home with our families or by ourselves and kind of rethink life. And some people chose to survive through COVID by exploring a passion that they may have. I have a friend that quilts, and shortly after COVID, well, when we got to a place that we could go back to work, she retired from her job and started a quilting business because that's her passion. That's what drives her. And while everybody is not in that situation, we have to keep our organizations attractive enough so that people won't find what they're looking for somewhere else, and how can we do that? So first, is your organization inclusive? And I want to stress that inclusion efforts or initiatives are not diversity efforts or initiatives. To say that your organization is inclusive does not mean that you run out and attempt to recruit as many diverse individuals as you can. It means that you measure what's happening within your own organization to determine whether or not people that are already there feel included. And what being included means is, can they contribute ideas openly without being shut down? Can they use their voice to speak up if they are dissatisfied with something, or if they have a new idea, a creative way to do something different in the organization, and that is accepted by leaders in the organization? And do they feel like they belong there? Is it, if you're one that says your organization is one big family, does everybody feel like they're a part of the family? And that's a question that's often hard to answer without having conversations with people about that topic. So first, find out whether or not your organization is inclusive, because if it's not, then it's a mistake to run out and attempt to recruit diversity, because when those people land in your organization, they won't feel at home either. And it leads to things like what we're seeing with the Great Resignation. So measuring for inclusivity is important. And then when you do recruit for diversity, first of all, in Oregon, we might ask the question, well, why? Why should we care about whether or not diverse individuals are a part of our organization? Well, there is a lot of literature that shows the ways in which diversity helps businesses. One is it increases productivity. When you bring people to the table that have a broader range of skills and experiences, things like productivity and creativity are increased. It will take less time to solve hard problems when a broad range of skills and experiences are at the table. So when productivity increases, the products or service that you are providing to your customer can also increase, which increases the bottom line within the organization. So diversity is valuable to have. And then it gives you a positive reputation among your peer institutions or peer businesses, as well as in the community, to show that you are making an effort to not only recruit diversity, but retain diversity as well. And the last point that I will make is when we go out and say that we want to recruit for diverse talent, please be sure that you have the supports in place to support people that move to a place like Central Oregon to live and thrive. I know from my own experience of coming to OSU-Cascades, when I was recruited, they were very honest with me about the demographics in Oregon. I had already done my own research, so I knew. However, nothing could prepare me for the way it felt, moving here and going to places like the grocery store or wherever, and maybe being going to work every day for a while. For 4 years, I was the only person of color, Black person that worked at OSU-Cascades. And I'm happy to report that now I do have colleagues that are Black as well. And so it's important to show that representation is there. And people can land and feel that they are a part. So when I say supports, what do I mean? Something as simple as where you can go to get your hair done, or a good barber in town, or where good restaurants are. If you know that a person is from a certain region of the country, you can direct them. I'm from the South, so direct them to places that might feel familiar or like home for them. And whatever you do, don't let it be just for the first few weeks that they start, because it doesn't feel authentic and they might not get that feeling of belonging if you make an effort for the first couple of weeks and then it just drops off. So be sure to be genuine about your efforts to onboard any diverse folks that you might hire within your organization, and then check in on them regularly and often, because I guarantee that they are having a very different experience walking through life in Central Oregon than you are. And giving them that outlet of just having someone they can connect with and share experiences with openly will help them feel like they belong. And belongingness is very important in terms of whether or not a person stays within an organization. So those are my tips for you today on how to, investigate your culture and to try to implement some DEI initiatives within your organization. It's always important to me to answer questions from the audience, so I will yield the rest of my time back so that we can do that.
Thank you so much, Erika, and thank you, Laurie. So let's go to the Q&A. Here's a question that I am not sure there is an answer yet available. Dr. Chesley might know. The question came in from Ryan. How have the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP loans, affected hiring in Central Oregon? Did they spur employee retention as intended? And if not, why not? So I don't know if you have a solid answer for that, Laurie, but I just looked on the federal. Well, and I think there might not be an answer yet because I think of timing. So I just looked on the federal website, and it looks like the data that they're tracking is actually the loan amounts and the size of the organizations and the number of organizations. And I'm not seeing any data on retention of employees. So I think that we could probably follow up on this with either COIC or Ken at the Small Business Development Center. So we'll put a pin in that one. Sorry, we don't have an answer. Unless, Erika, did you have an answer for that one? I don't know the answer on the PPP loans.
A concrete answer, no, this is not scientific. I will say that no one consulted me on, the PPP loan strategy. So I just want to make it clear. This is a total speculation here, but it depends on how the receiver of the PPP loan used the funds, right? And sometimes those funds they don't go directly into the pocket of employees. They can be used to pay off other debts or just trying to keep the doors open, for a business. So a direct tie to retention, maybe in some cases, but maybe not in others.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, I'm not clear that that's being tracked and reported very, very effectively right now, because based on the federal site, the SBDC site, but it doesn't even have that as a data point. But it's an excellent question. All right, so we have another question here. This one, I believe, is to you, Dr. Chesley. How would someone access the training opportunities and programs you spoke about?
Sure. If you're a student looking for classes or training, whatever, admissions and records website, cocc.edu, admissions and records, and you can get started that way. If you are a local business or employer and you're looking for us to offer or create some training, the man is Ken Betchert. He is currently the head of our Small Business Development Corporation, and he will remain in that role. But his role is also being expanded at the college as we integrate some services to create a new unit called Business and Employer Services. Admissions and record, Ken Betchert.
Excellent. And maybe you could even pop that into the chat.
I can pop that into the chat.
Excellent. I think the next question, actually, there's potential for all three of us to have thoughts on this. So I'm just going to put that out there. The next question is from Dawn, and it said, can you speak more about the employability skills? What would classes look like for an employee who may need to work on those skills? So that's pretty broad. And I think that there are several opportunities here. So I'm going to speak a little bit about some of the skill building opportunities that are available through WorkSource Oregon. And we will be posting that information later and after the Q&A is done, so that you can contact the WorkSource centers. They have skill building opportunities for job seekers, for employees, for any Oregonian, to come in and improve computer skills, resume, interviewing skills, really kind of a broad set of skills. In addition, I know that OSU-Cascades, and through Erika's new work in her department, that they actually have a lot of skill building opportunities too. So Erika, why don't I pass it to you, and then we can have Dr. Chesley chime in.
Sure. Many of the degree programs at OSU-Cascades have those lower level classes that are solely focused on building those soft skills and some hard technical skills that students need depending on their field of study. And so since my area of is business, I can speak to what we have that's called the Blueprint program. And it's a series of classes that students take throughout their 4 years at OSU-Cascades that gives them those resume building skills, interview skills, presentation skills, and using tools like Microsoft Office and learning more intricate details about those skills. We also teach financial planning. We talk about student debt, which is a huge problem, and how to manage and work to pay off your debt are all skills that we teach in the business program at OSU-Cascades.
Thank you. What about you, Laurie? Did you have any thoughts really on kind of the employability
Sure.
skills?
Well, like OSU-Cascades, we do have some standalone classes in areas we would call soft skills, interpersonal communications, Microsoft Office, things like that. But I think where we even more importantly address those employability skills are within the classes that teach the technical skills. They're embedded. So what might that look like? It might look like a class in nursing setting very specific expectations for behavior that are linked to grade, right? You must show up on time. You must, wear your scrubs or the appropriate attire. But it can also turn up in assignments and activities that students do. So in nursing, we do simulations with, simulated patients in the lab, and you have a problem to solve, or something to do that helps you with problem solving and decision-making skills. Sometimes the simulations that we do in classes can be more interpersonal. How would you talk to the parent of a patient who is experiencing X, Y, or Z? So it's combining the two really together to see how they work in the real world.
Excellent. Erika, we have a question that came in specifically for you. Can you share an example of a time when someone made you feel welcome and included in the workplace? You gave some good examples before, but if you could maybe add a few.
Sure. So coming to OSU-Cascades, I can honestly say that the community and the institution itself really welcomed my ideas around how to address certain issues that I saw from my own experiences in the workplace and in the community. And I'm the type of person that's solution oriented. And so when I would experience a problem, I would think of a way to help solve that problem. And I was never shut down. I was never told no. And that has led to a lot of the success that I have had since being at OSU-Cascades. And when I say success, I just mean highlighting diversity, equity, and inclusion and its importance in the community of Central Oregon, as well as at Oregon State University and on the Cascades campus. So I am very fortunate that the door was wide open for me to blaze the trail that I wanted to blaze for myself. And I encourage anyone that has an idea for either a business or, something that they want to see happen in this community, get to work, do it. Find out what you need to have in order to create the opportunity that you want to see for yourself. You won't always be able to latch on to someone else's success and become a part of that. So just blaze your own trail, because the opportunity is certainly there if you are able to take advantage of it.
Excellent. Another question came in, and it's really for both of you. And I think I have a pretty good sense of the answer, but I'm going to pass it to y'all. What funnels are available for OSU or COCC graduates into the local Bend labor and talent market? Are there opportunities for businesses to collaborate and work with OSU-Cascades or COCC for talent recruiting? And I happen to know OSU-Cascades just had a big event this week on recruiting. So I know you both have really amazing placement services. Did you want to speak to that? Either one of you want to? Great, thanks.
Sure. By being a small-ish community, there are a lot of people there, but it's still kind of small in terms of how people know each other and how we communicate with each other. And that opportunity for anyone to come into classrooms and talk to students. I have even created projects around local businesses for my students in classes to work on. And that can be like the major project for the course. And they're helping this business solve a real world problem. Our career services team works all the time with local organizations to place students in internship or job opportunities. So we really value our community partnerships because it gives our students the opportunity for experiential learning that is so valuable for students to graduate with today. I think it kind of sets them apart from those students that just have the classroom experience. Being at OSU-Cascades, where it's so small and we can work on real world solutions that impact our community, is certainly a benefit of being at OSU-Cascades.
I love that triple win there. That's awesome. Thanks. Laurie, what about you?
Yeah, I'll add just a few comments. We do help students toward employment in a lot of different ways. Career recruitment fairs, we just had one for early childhood education. So a lot of times we're encouraging participation in the career and connecting students to jobs. But one thing that's really important at COCC is that our faculty are very connected to local employers. They know the state of the industry equipment. They know the skills that are needed. They know what employers are looking for. Employers sit on all of our advisory boards for career and technical education programs. So that's a very important connection. The other thing is that our faculty know how to help our students get jobs because they come from the field that they're teaching. Our emergency services folks, our EMTs, they've been EMTs, they know. Our automotive faculty, they've worked in the shop, they know. And so that kind of job experience that our faculty brings is really important to giving the students a really accurate sense of what they're getting themselves into.
That's great. So there's another question here that's a little long, and I'm going to try and reframe it and see if we can make it succinct. There's a question, it's a SMART question about, are there efforts underway at either of your institutions? And I think the answer is yes. Really around looking at what are the skills necessary to, for example, work in the construction industry? And are there a percentage of those skills that might be the same skills that are needed, for example, in the manufacturing industry? So we can do what I like to call recession-proof people as much as possible. So diversifying a skill set. So you maybe have your grounding is in manufacturing or construction, but you have enough to really be maybe 80% of the way to move into another industry. And just wondering if there are any efforts underway to kind of cross-reference those skill sets internally or the programs of study and aligning them in a way that can really kind of create multiple pathways. And I hope I framed that okay. If I didn't, answer the question you wish I would have asked.
Let me jump in and try here, although I'd rather follow Erika because she would give me some good ideas. But I'll start here. I do not know of any targeted efforts that COCC has made in this regard. But what I do know is that when we're advising students, career advising, when our faculty are working with students, they help students understand the concept of transferable skills. So students understand if they can do one thing, it doesn't just mean that they know how to fix the HVAC on a car, but they have a problem-solving skill set. They have a small engine skill set. Now, again, I'm not an automotive technician, so I can't go much farther than that. But I know that our faculty work a lot with that concept of transferable skills, but I don't know of the targeted effort that this questioner is speaking to.
Did you want to add anything, Erika? Oh, go ahead.
Sure. So I know one avenue that we're exploring at OSU-Cascades is our capstone projects for the majors. And it's that one culminating project that students work on when they are usually seniors at the end of their degree programs. We're looking at ways to make those interdisciplinary so that students are learning an entire process. While it might be focused in business, how does this relate to engineering, or how does this relate to outdoor products, or some other major that we might have? Maybe what you want to do is more in the area of like public relations and communications. And so how can we tie in all of those different areas into one large capstone project so that students get experience in application of everything that they've learned throughout their degree program, and how other fields also tie in to the work that they will be doing on a day-to-day basis. So that is one avenue that we're exploring to kind of give a more well-rounded skill set to our students.
And then just from a local workforce board perspective, we're always thinking about that because as I mentioned, it is a thing that can help recession-proof someone. So when we don't have, if there's maybe the perfect example is in our last recession. So when the construction industry was hit so hard, so were all the supply services to that industry. So our window and door manufacturers, it was just a double whammy. So diversifying the economy and diversifying the skill sets is pretty key. There's a question that came in about hiring practices, and really with an eye to trying to hire more diverse populations. So the question is, do you think it's a good idea to include people of diverse backgrounds, disabilities, abilities, community organizations to be a part of hiring process if your goal is to really increase your diversity? Do either of you have thoughts on that? Maybe Erika, you could kick us off.
Sure. Just to be sure I understand, I want to make sure I'm answering the right question. So whoever asked the question, please comment if I'm not answering what you want to know. For some organizations, like maybe the City of Bend, if they are doing a hire, maybe they can pull in stakeholder groups to be a part of that search process along the way. However, for private companies and higher education institutions, it depends on the search as to whether or not public input is open. Sometimes search processes are more within the context of the organization, and so bringing in outside interest groups may not be a possibility. So having people within the organization that represent those diverse groups or have various identities, making sure that they are available and can be on a search. And at OSU, we have what we call search advocates, which are people that are trained to watch for any bias and make sure that everyone has the same experience while going through the interview process at OSU. So that helps us have that lens, that eye on the search at all times. And so maybe an organization that does not allow community stakeholder groups in for an interview process could have their own search advocate process developed.
Erika, may I ask a follow-on question? That is
Sure.
such a great idea. Does that group get trained really in being able to have the skill set to be watching for that? And do
Yes.
they interrupt the process as it's happening, or is it more
Yes.
of a, wow, that's so incredible. Thank you.
Sure.
A great example. Did you want to add anything, Laurie?
Well, I absolutely support Erika's comments. Diverse voices are very important on hiring committees. I think community involvement, it does sometimes depend on the position. Sometimes the makeup of a search committee differs based on a position. but diversity is a good thing in all senses of the word. I also think it's important to remember that when you're doing a search, there's the committee that's screening and maybe doing an initial interview, but there's a greater process as well. And at most educational institutions, that involves some sort of on-campus visit after an initial screening. And that's a great way to involve as many stakeholders as you can, because they're there for at least a day. And those might be community stakeholders, they might be local business people. So we are soon going to be interviewing some candidates for the Vice President of Finance and Operations, and they do a two-day gauntlet here at the college, and lots and lots of people get input on those candidates.
That's great. Thank you both. So this one, I believe, Erika, really is intended for you. And it's a great question about whether or not you have suggestions around maybe an overhaul that's needed to a culture within an organization, but that culture has been left for way too long and it hasn't been ideal. So it's kind of probably a lot of bad behavior, a lot of bad habits, right, in that culture. So where do you start when it's been a long time and you really have to overhaul things?
I would suggest bring in a consultant, someone that has the skill set to truly see the culture for what it is, because they are coming from outside the organization. They have not been in it and they haven't participated in it. And so they haven't become a part of the problem, right? And so bringing in a fresh voice that can gather the data that's necessary to inform the change that needs to be made. Because to say that your culture is bad, that doesn't tell me exactly what the problem is. And so I would, if it were me doing that work, I would need to go in and talk to people at every level of the organization and find out what the problems are, and then work to address those problems within the organization. So that would be my advice on how to begin the change of fixing a culture that has kind of gone downhill. And I will caution that culture change and culture shift takes time. So if a company commits to changing their culture, they have to be in for the long haul, because it's not something that happens overnight. It's more of a marathon, not a sprint.
And Erika, those are services that you offer through OSU-Cascades, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I do offer those services through the DEI lab at OSU-Cascades.
Well, East Cascades Works has been a partner and also a customer of Erika's incredible work through the DEI lab. And I do highly recommend it because it's very comprehensive and thoughtful. And I'd also just like to throw out there that one of the things that I really appreciate about the way that Erika approaches her work is that it's very strength-based. She's not going to sugarcoat it for you, but it's strength-based. It's not about judgment. It's not about shaming. That's not going to get culture change, and it's not going to get people to change their minds. So I do just really highly recommend it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. You've been incredible. So let's see here. Oh, we got two more, and it looks like we have enough time, hopefully, to quickly get these two in. So, in this one, I might make an even broader question. The question is, how do you hold accountable companies or organizations that say that they want to diversify, but it's really more of a checkbox, right? And so I think the question is, do you or how do you? Because I think you could look at this from multiple perspectives, from being inside an organization and feeling like they're just checking a box versus being maybe a community partner. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to interpret this, but do you have thoughts on that one, Erika?
Sure. Constantly ask questions, because an organization or the leaders in an organization don't know that you feel they're lacking in that area until you tell them. You can't depend on anyone to see the numbers and think we have a problem here, right? If OSU-Cascades said, oh, we have Erika and Erika's doing wonderful, we are good. That's not true, because I wouldn't be over time if that were the case, right? There needs to be a steady move forward. And if you're not seeing that, ask the tough questions, because I'm sorry that it will fall on, usually it falls on the diverse employees to press for that kind of accountability. And I'm sorry that's the case. But in a place like Oregon, that is just the nature of the beast. And so grab your courage and ask the tough questions of those that need to provide those answers. Also, come with a suggestion or a solution, because pointing out problems is easy. The organization is probably already aware of the problem. They just don't know how to solve it. So bring forth a solution to how you address the problem that you're bringing forward.
And I would also just throw out there, have personal supports that are outside of the organization so that you can grab that courage that Erika was just talking about. So the last question, and Laurie, I think you might be able to help me with this one, is there's a question about if there's grants or federal funding available for businesses to reimburse employee tuition for education and skill development training. So I know about some pretty generous contributions that came from the Colleges Foundation around the manufacturing industry and really supporting some of those, but I don't know of any federal programs that fund individual companies. Mm-hmm. But I can talk a little bit about, we used to, when we had more federal funds, actually procure for incumbent worker training, where we would pay half the costs of training. Mm-hmm. And we haven't had enough funding to do that in the last 2 years. Yeah. So if we get this legislative package that's currently was discussed this morning at 7:30 when I testified, we will have more resources if Future Ready passes. So we'll see. But did you have anything to add, Laurie? Because I
don't know of grants available specifically to employers or businesses. Like you, I know there are federal grants or college grants that can be used, to pay tuition for students. I just don't know that from an employer or a business standpoint.
To be frank, there are not a lot. And I also have to say, this is a national crisis issue around retooling and reskilling people in the workplace, particularly when you think about the speed at which technology is changing and evolving, mm-hmm. and our skills are becoming irrelevant. So skilling up is a major issue, and we'll continue to pick away at that one. And with this, I think we could probably post up the work source information. And I can do that, Talina, if you'd like. Would you like me to do that? And then I'm going to pass it back to Talina. I'd like to thank Erika and Laurie for being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And thank you, Erika and Laurie, for a fantastic discussion today. We really appreciate your time and expertise. We're lucky to have you here in the community. Please follow the Ben Chamber on social media to stay up to date on our workforce housing initiative, one of the pieces of the puzzle to solving our workforce challenges. And thank you once again to Miller Lumber and Sunwest Builders for their support of our What's Brewing events. Everyone, have a lovely day. Feel free to hang out here for a minute and track this information on the slides that Heather has on the screen. We'll also be sure to follow up with you by email. Fantastic. Have a great day.